All right. Welcome back. Here we are live again from New York. What from Los Angeles? I've already gone back. It seems on my mind to the West Coast, but we're still in New York here in Brooklyn. We're going to talk watches. We're going to talk again about some recent auction results, which are going to be very educational. Ozzy, thank you for reminding everyone to upvote even before I have done anything at all. So I appreciate that. Feel free to jump on, by the way. I don't know if you have the link, but you should. And I will go right away. I might end up doing something I don't usually do and eat on camera or something like that because I have some food coming in. We'll see. We'll see how we handle that. You may have seen already the thumbnail that I put up, and we will come to that. But I wanted to share first. You may share first what is coming up, which is another single owner online auction that Philips organizes, technically based out of Hong Kong. Some of the watches from that auction were already on display, were already on viewing or presented for viewing in New York in a separate case when they were doing the viewing for the New York auction. That unfortunately has passed. That December 9th was the last day for that viewing. But this is something that they call le concours de complexité, pretty much giving away most of the thematic there. These are going to be complicated watches, and the display they had actually in New York was exclusively FP Journe pieces. Now, here is probably one of the highlights, which is the FP Journe's Grande et Petite Sonnerie, a chiming watch, as you can see, with these two distinct pushers. The hammer you can see right there as well. It's a stainless steel piece from 2018. There is ruthenium chronomètre à résonance from 2001, only number 2. You already realize that this is quite a serious collector. Again, both of these should be quite strong watches, will probably present very strong hammer prices, will probably realize very strong hammer prices, I should say. And the third piece they present here is something or a similar piece that was already sold in the New York auction, which is a Tourbillon Sovereign in platinum from 2017. With these kinds of auctions, with the online auctions, it takes them a while to really compile a catalog. I think they also shy away from doing that because the auction itself serves as a catalog in so many ways, because it takes an entire week. It will open at 8 p.m. Hong Kong time on January 12th, January 13th for online bidding, and it will close on January 20th at 5 p.m. once again Hong Kong time. I was told that there are going to be some other brands and some other complicated watches, but basically the entire case of watches they presented in New York, 6 to 8 of them were FP Journe pieces. So that's what you should really expect. And I think an online auction is quite an interesting way to present an auction like this, and it should be telling. The results would be probably very telling once they come out on January 20th, so in about a week from now. Hey, Barlight Broker, nice to see you, man. But the actual auction that I wanted to take a closer look at, and that has concluded in the middle of this week, December 14th, was the Fine Watches auction at Bonhams, London, at their New Bond Street location. This was a number of probably about 100 lots or so. Not a single owner auction, but I think a lot of them had some sort of racing collection because they came from the collection of a gentleman driver, so to speak. I want to start with what is at the thumbnail of my video. You'll have to give me a second here. All right, so the food arrived. We'll see how I will cope with the situation. I feel entirely unequipped, but hey, I'm a watch YouTuber, so I need to learn how to stuff my face on camera live. So look out for that classy demonstration. Now, this watch is, I think, very important and interesting for a couple of reasons. One, perhaps very obvious, it is discontinued. And two, it uses caliber base, an Ebosh, a movement base that is in and of itself very important, historically important to the entire genre, which is the sports chic, high-end, ultra-luxury integrated bracelet watch, right? Many of you would know, of course, that Jaeger-LeCoultre's Caliber 920 was the base that was used both for the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak and the Patek Philippe Nautilus at their inception. In fact, the Royal Oak used the base of that caliber 920, which is 2121 in Audemars Piguet's parlance, up until this year, up until the 50th anniversary of the model, where they actually updated it to what they call 7121, now with an upgraded power reserve. Yet it's a movement that happens to be slightly thicker than the original JLC caliber 920. AP was still able to fit that movement into the same jumbo extra thin case, but that's another conversation altogether. When Vacheron Constantin reintroduced the overseas with the third generation for the standard time and date stainless steel model, they actually devised another caliber, which they call 5100. But for they also had something else up their sleeve. They also had an ultra thin reference in white gold that was very similar to the stainless steel, but offered quite a bit more in a smaller package. It had the same quick change bracelet construction, as you can see from these pictures. Same design that has half Maltese crosses as the links of the bracelet. It had this rather monochromatic look and a rather simplistically beautiful appearance that is very balanced, which is minimally enabled by the elimination of the date window, of course. And it has that slight touch of electric blue, which serves as the minute track, as the markers on the minute track. And again, you see the lack of centrally deployed seconds as well, which to those of you who are horologically educated, perhaps by virtue of having listened to this channel enough, would know that's a telltale sign of JLC 920, which of course is in Vacheron Constantin's parlance the caliber 1120. This is a caliber Vacheron Constantin actually still uses, even though they have eliminated this particular model from the lineup. Everything that you will see more or less in the overseas range that's marked ultra thin, for example, the ultra thin perpetual calendars, are built on the base of caliber 1120, which is JLC 920, and which was, again, the first caliber used for the Royal Oak, for the Nautilus, not to mention, of course, by Vacheron Constantin, as well as you see here. Now, this is a watch, again, that comes in a smaller package than the stainless steel. It is not only 40 millimeters in diameter, which is a little smaller than the 41 of the overseas self-winding, which goes by the reference number 4500V. It is also merely 7.5 millimeters thick compared to 11 millimeters of the standard overseas. So it's a very, very beautiful, sleek, and discreet watch. Has basically everything that the stainless steel version has, but in a package that's smaller, more streamlined, and perhaps more distilled in its beauty. And this was a relatively clean example that was sold at lot 13 in the Bonhams auction in London last Wednesday. As a full package, and the finalized price, including the premium, was almost 76,000 pounds sterling. This was a piece, by the way, just so you know, the way it's trending now that the overseas is much more popular, and now that this particular model is actually discontinued. This was a piece that was released in September 2016, if I'm not mistaken, for around $56,000 US dollars. So a beautiful piece, certainly well worth that particular tag price, which people may or may not have realized at the time. But the overseas reference 2000 V, now that it has been discontinued, and now that it's been recognized as being also in a way historically important as well, since it has that signature caliber of this particular genre of ultra luxury sports watches. It's been gaining ground, and if you can find them for a good price, I would highly recommend that you snag it up, because these are going to be harder to come by as time goes on. Of course, again, remember that caliber, JLC 920, is actually not only historically important, but still horologically significant, because when it comes to self-winding mechanical movements with a full rotor, as opposed to, say, a micro rotor or a bumper or something like that, that is still the thinnest automatic caliber with a full rotor. Still, we are talking about a watch caliber that was released in 1967, and we are talking about a caliber that was used for the first Royal Oak and for 49 years for the jumbo extra thin Royal Oak, from 72 until 2021. And to this day, in 2022, JLC 920 is still the thinnest self-winding watch movement with a full rotor. I think that's very significant. There are, of course, a lot of other interesting pieces here. There's at 4, lot number 4, there's Art Deco styled Patek Philippe rectangular watch, which is referred to as Pagoda, reference 5500J-001, in 18 karat yellow gold. Again, damn near as a full set. it was sold for a little more than 14,000 pounds sterling, including the buyer's premium. That was lot 4, Patek Philippe Pagoda, reference 5500J. There was a 6-digit Daytona with a white dial, all in stainless steel at lot 3. That's a Rolex Cosmograph Daytona reference 116520, which sold for 19,125 pounds sterling, including the premium. All of this gives you an idea, of course, as to how these watches start trending now that they're selling even in auction for these kinds of prices. It is really coming down, and I'm going to talk about that in reference to an Instagram post by a gray market dealer, actually, which might as well have referenced the conversations we were having on this channel in April or May, but they're admitting now that there's a market crash, which is very interesting. Lot number 7 is one of my favorites when it comes to unusual Cartier tanks. This is the so-called asymétrique. I particularly like the 3-pronged lug design, which integrates really well to both the leather strap and the asymmetrical shape of the watch. And this is a reference 4287, which was a limited edition quite recently. And it is a piece in yellow gold, which sold for almost 23,000 pounds sterling, including the buyer's premium. And again, we see results in this auction that testifies to the increasing popularity and the lasting collectability of both vintage as well as limited edition Cartier watches, especially if and when they are variations on the familiar theme, which is the Cartier tank, of course, which just happens to be the most iconic model that Cartier has released. Of course, Cartier has other icons, Santos being another, Pasha being yet a third, and so many others, but tank seems to capture imagination perhaps a little stronger than others. The crash is, of course, yet another shape, but let's not muddy the waters too much. You can certainly make the argument that even that has some inspiration by tank behind it. But this was lot 8. Again, a watch that is becoming increasingly popular. This is the Tank Cintré, named thus for the curved and quite sensual shape of the case. This is something that sits really beautifully on the wrist. And this particular limited edition, I think, perhaps more than others, has a design that really evokes some of the vintage pieces. As you know, this is a watch that Steve McQueen wore in the original Thomas Crown affair. You would certainly see it in that famous publicity shot where he is all suited and booted with a very elegant Lancero cigar in his hand, and you would see the Cartier Tank Cintré on his wrist. You can probably see that picture if you would like to. If you would like to check out my Instagram, you'll probably be able to hunt down that picture. I'm not going to break up the presentation at this moment. It's certainly a wonderful, wonderful piece that has been iconically worn by Steve McQueen and has recently really become popular, I would say, in my humble opinion, due to very beautiful special order pieces that Ronnie Madavi actually did through Cartier. And those pieces were written up in a number of outlets and specifically by George Kramer. There was an article at some point, I'm blanking out on the name of the outlet, but there was a piece on the custom order process through Cartier boutiques for watches. And those two Cartier Tank 113 were very prominently presented on that piece as well. So whatever Ronnie thinks about it, he has certainly become a tastemaker as a collector. And I think there's something to be said about the recent burgeoning interest in this particular variation of the tank through the collection and through the really custom design orders of Ronnie Madavi through Cartier Paris. Yeah, it's really, really a very elegant piece. And this particular example, which is Cartier Tank Centré 100, that's a quite recent piece. Again, you might think it's from 1921, but it is actually from 2021, and certainly is in and of itself a statement of the quote-unquote timelessness of this particular watch. Eric L. That looks surreal. It's like it's getting pulled from your wrist. Yeah, it's a very nice piece. I think the variations of the tank are just as interesting, if not more, to me than the iconic shape itself, which, again, I'm not denying its appeal in any way, but to me, Tank Centré or Tank Asymétrique or even Tank Chinoise, I think those three models are so much more interesting than for the lack of a better word, regular or original tank design. But that's just my humble opinion. Uh, 6000G, which was at some point quite a somewhat neglected and then suddenly quite a popular version of the Patek Philippe Calatrava. Patek does this once every so often, right? Calatrava being their, of course, one of their most popular watches of all time, and certainly their bread and butter as a simple dress watch. And once every so often, well, not once every so often, quite regularly, they release more dynamic, more youthful, more playful takes of the Calatrava design. 6000G was certainly that. In the current lineup, perhaps you would look to something like the 5212A, which is both a weekly calendar and a stainless steel Calatrava that checks a lot of boxes. But 6000G was for a while neglected and then suddenly quite popular when it became discontinued. And nowadays, the prices seem to be settling at a certain range. And in this auction setting, lot number 10 actually sold for £19,125, including the premium for this white gold Patek Philippe Calatrava. There were a few watches that did not sell, that I think is an important thing to note in and of itself. This 5131G with the Clausonet enamel dial that had an estimate of 60 to 80,000 pounds sterling did not sell. Neither did lot 15, which is the platinum version of Patek Philippe Gondolo with the salmon dial, with this triple stepped rectangular case. I think it's a beautiful design. I also like the more bare bones 8-day power reserve version of these as well, with the salmon dial as well. But of course, these are much more special because they not only have 10-day power reserve in this beautifully formed caliber that is also matching with the contours of the case. You of course also have the tourbillon displayed prominently on that exhibition case back. And as with all Patek tourbillon watches, you have the caliber number inscribed on the face of the watch. A very beautiful, elegant, and significant watch, but it did not sell. This is a 5101P. It did not sell at that 80,000 to 120,000 pounds sterling estimate. We can safely assume that 80,000 was also the reserve, and no one actually bid at that price point for this significant watch. Speaking of F.P. Jones, this Octa Calendrier at lot 16, the automatic version of a calendar watch by F.P. Jones with that crescent retrograde date. That's sold for 120,000, including the premium. It happens to be also part of a 38-piece limited run. I think some of its significance was that this is purportedly the last run of 38 millimeter cases for these watches. So that makes it a little more rare and much more desirable. Lot 16, Octa Calendrier in a limited edition in a 38 millimeter case, limited edition of 38. I guess that resonates. Sold for 120,000 pounds sterling, including the premium. Hey, JJ, so nice to see you, man. Lovely to see you as always. My greetings to Michigan. At lot 19, you have classic Cosmograph Daytona reference 6239 with what is called Panda dial, of course, those black chronograph registers against the silvered backgrounds, all in stainless steel with box and papers. I think with papers, they really mean the service papers and service guarantee from 68, which is quite early, right? You know, because the watch is presumed to be from 65 itself. But again, it's important to make that distinction. Okay, it has box and papers and service papers. You can't argue with that. And honestly, the watch looks quite amazing for its age, especially when it comes to the case. And that sold for 55,740 pounds sterling, including the premium at lot 19. At lot 90, lot 20, there was a very significant Speedmaster with this chocolate brown, milk chocolate, you might even say, brown um, tropical dial and alpha hands. Of course, this is a reference 2998-1 from 1960s roughly, from the family of the original owner. And that sold for less than 20K in pounds sterling, including the premium. Let me take a short break and check on my food, but I will try to share with you something interesting. And there we go. A beautiful example of the 1680 meters first with red writing. This is actually quite significant. And it sold for, you know, a relatively good deal. So let's talk about that when I come back. Okay. All right. All right. So we are back. Lot 21 is a very beautiful example of that first reference of a Rolex Submariner in stainless steel with a date function, with a calendar function, so to speak. So it has a lot of the iconic elements that people associate with a Rolex, including, of course, the rotational bezel, which is part and parcel of Submariner as a dive watch, and the Cyclops, which serves as a magnifier for the date display. This is lot 21, a Submariner from roughly 1968, and you can tell that because you have a meters first display rather than feet first. These get reversed in time, and soon enough the Submariner writing in red disappears as well, and everything becomes white. But this is one of the classics before it's changed. Of course, there is some decay, you might say even significant decay, in the tritium luminous material that fills out the hands, but everything aged quite beautifully and relatively evenly here. Um, I mean, this is an interesting phenomenon actually, because one of the reasons that Rolex has this recognizable Mercedes hand for the hour is to basically divide that larger loom on the moving hand so it would be actually relatively stable, so it would not disintegrate like this. But of course, um, more than 55, well, almost 55 years later, I'm sure they haven't accounted for that. And it's quite all right, honestly. I would rather leave it as it is, even in a skeletonized way. If they end up falling off, um, it's much better, I think, to preserve things as they are, as they originally were, in decayed form, than changing it for what is new and shiny and supposedly functional, whatever that means. Lot 21 sold for a little more than 15,000, including the premium, which again I think is very indicative of market trends, because a piece like this would, I would say, easily go for $25,000 just a couple of months ago, and possibly even more at the beginning of the year. And nowadays, again, at an auction from a recognizable, if not esteemed, auction house such as Bonhams London, you have a piece that went for a little more than 15,000 pounds sterling rather than 20,000 in pounds sterling. So the trend has been significantly downwards, and we haven't seen the bottom yet. They're actually that's a very interesting row in and of itself. Number 22 is a Paul Newman with the exotic dial, white background, black subdials. It does not come on a bracelet, but I think it's presented on a very tasteful strap here that really fits the vibe of the watch. And this 6239 again from roughly 1967, actually did not sell. It had an estimated value of 100,000 to 150,000 pounds sterling, and it did not sell at at the lower end of that estimate, which was 100,000. And I understand, again, it's not, it's not full set, or, I understand it doesn't have the bracelet. Trust me, at the beginning of the year, things like this would probably been less of a concern. And I could not imagine seeing an auction where a Paul Newman Daytona would not sell. And here we are in December 2022, and you have a relatively well-preserved example of a Paul Newman Daytona with the exotic dial. Yes, without the bracelet. Yes, without anything else that goes with it. But the dial itself is in beautiful condition. The case is well preserved, and so is the bezel, relatively speaking, right? There's a little bit of fading here and there at 55 and 90, a few scratches and small dings. But lot 2022 did not sell, which is something to be remarked for sure. Racing R, nice to see you, man. Welcome to my neck of woods. Unfortunately, I'm not there, but we'll be together soon enough. At lot 23, Daytona Big Red, which is a reference 6263, called a Big Red because of the particularly enlarged and relatively thick font of the red Daytona writing there above the 12-hour counter. With the acrylic bezel. This is also a very desirable Daytona, and it sold for a little more than 50,000 pounds sterling. Again, indicating a downward trend in the market pricing of Daytonas in general, and most luxury watches, period. Even those that have been hyped up and that have been very desirable in the last couple of years. We have been saying it, but no one listened at a certain point in time. Now it's becoming undeniable. Lot 24, Vacheron Constantin 222, revived this year in quite a faithful reissue by Vacheron Constantin in their Les Historiques series in 18-karat yellow gold. This is, of course, the stainless steel version. Their original Jumbo, which is a 37mm watch, actually. And this reference 44016 at lot 24 sold for 50,700 pounds sterling, including the buyer's premium. Again, a relatively neglected watch that had to wait for its time under the sun quite patiently, and it really took until everything was cleaned out in terms of Royal Oaks and Nautiluses, until the overseas, years after its release in the third generation, finally became popular. People started looking back at the heritage of these integrated bracelet luxury sports watches within the brand, within Vacheron Constantin's own archive, and finally the 222, which was released for the 222nd anniversary of Vacheron Constantin, was finally recognized, and prices now seem to be stabilizing again, but nevertheless, they are multiple times of what they were just a few years back, say 3 to 5 years ago. We have Alan Söhne Arcade with a diamond set bezel. This was one of the original pieces released in 1994 for the revival of the brand, which was engineered by LMH executive Günther Blümlein and the family heir Walter Lange. Arcade was initially designed to be their quote-unquote ladies' watch in the first place, but this particular model, of course, accentuates it a little more with the gem setting. And it's a quite elegant and balanced piece, actually. I rather like this case shape, and you would not be surprised that the movement too in this particular example is fitted to the case. Unfortunately, they don't have any shots, so I can't really show you, but this is a very elegant watch that also satisfies with a glimpse to the back, which will exhibit that caliber 9114 quite proudly, which is made for this case. Hey, thanks for reminding everyone to upvote, Eric. I appreciate you. Love the 222, but it's a bit too Knights Templar for me. Yeah, Eric, look, I mean, from a personal standpoint, that's my main issue with Vacheron Constantin. I love a lot of things about the brand. Historically, I love a lot of contemporary designs. I love a lot about the Overseas as a line, especially that white gold version that I showed just earlier, the reference 2000V, which is now discontinued. I adore that watch, but God knows that I would never own one, because it's the Maltese cross is all over the place. Actually, the 222 is much more subtle about it. I know there's one on the side of that tonneau shaped case, and of course as part of the logo of the brand, but it is what it is. I think that's a little more subtle compared to the Overseas third generation imagery, which integrates it to every single link of that bracelet. So it's a beautiful watch, but not necessarily for me, and that's not a problem at all, because that's how I appreciate these things, right? I love a lot of Christian art. I love a lot of stories of Christian martyrs. That doesn't make me a Christian, and in the same way, I adore these pieces from a certain distance without necessarily even desiring to own them, but they're still beautiful. Now we have back-to-back these Hoyas from the Gentleman Drivers collection. I will send the link in the chat. If you would like to draw my attention to any of the pieces, feel free to just send the name or send the number of the lots to the chat, ideally with a super chat, and I will make sure to do a more deep dive to the history and horological significance of that particular watch. Let's start with something that is relatively simple but very elegant and powerful. This is the Hoya Carrera in its traditional form, in a dial layout that we would today call reverse panda, with big eyes, so to speak, right? A relatively large, one might even say oversized subdials in white against a black dial, with the tachymeter around the dial, and you also see a seconds track at the outside on the perimeter of the dial as well. These Hoyas are actually quite amazing. The reference is 2447. You can find them both with the so-called panda configuration or in the reverse panda configuration, as is the case here. They're, of course, still very much manual wind, being from year 1968. They are based on that same Ebosch, same movement base, Valjoux 72. That is also the case, of course, with the Rolex Daytona of the same period. It happens to be the case with the Universal Genève compacts of the same period, especially the model that is now called Nina Rindt, after the famous supermodel and wife of race car driver Jochen Rindt. These are very desirable, and they have been trending upwards and onwards in the recent years. Certainly on the secondary market, you can get it cheaper than this, but in this auction setting, having been also cataloged along with other significant Hoyas from the collection of one particular gentleman of motorsport, as Bonhams presents it here, it sold for £10,837 sterling, including the buyer's premium. It's a very beautiful watch. You can wear it on a leather band, like a rally strap here. You can even wear it on a NATO strap. It's a very versatile watch. You can wear it on a more elevated kind of leather strap, perhaps less sporty, and it can even be, in a way, your dress watch. These are 36 millimeter cases, as you can see here. So very wearable, very readable, legible in a way, but also quite muted in their design, that they can certainly be worn in so many other ways. I think, in fact, I made a video about this, as I want to do. I will drop a link to that. This is a piece that I called the Sports Chronograph as a dress watch. Hey, Lux Report, how are you doing, man? Nice to see you. And and I tried to document it specifically through some of the outfits that the Team Lotus guys wore with their Breitling Navitimer reference 806s. I'm talking, of course, about Jim Clark and Graham Hill. But the sports chronograph from the 60s, in its proportions, in its classical elements of design, on a leather strap, I think is as versatile of a watch as any. 33 perhaps is even a better example of this, right? Even more bare bones, silver dial, blue accents for decimals on the perimeter, and 45-minute counter at 3 o'clock would have come in quite handy about now as we were watching the World Cup, right? This watch, for example, right? It's a veritable sports watch, of course, in its time. But when it comes down to it, of course, it is also a beautiful dress watch because it is so simple, because it's so muted, because it's so wearable in its rather restrained proportions. This is lot 33, reference 3647D, an even earlier example than what we have just looked at, and it sold for 6,375 pounds sterling, including the premium. Right, so reference 2447 is a little more popular, but the older 3647 would serve you fine as well if you would be interested in a watch like that. 35 unfortunately didn't sell. I have a hard time understanding this because this is a piece that, at least to my taste, I'm wearing a Breguet Type 20, of course, so you wouldn't be surprised, but with that rotational timing bezel, with the extremely legible dial with white sub-registers against the black, the Altavia, which in its name reflects both the racing and aviational heritage of the model, of course. This is a piece that was once issued to the Argentine Air Force and comes in this case with this old school curved end tropic strap as well, which is a great match to it. And this one unfortunately didn't sell at 6,000 to 8,000 pounds sterling of an estimate. It did not break the reserve, which is probably right around the lower end of that estimate. This was an Altavia 7763 MH, roughly from 1969, and it did not sell, unfortunately. The 3646M, which is right before it, lovely Dauphine hands, again a rotational timing bezel, very clear and legible reverse panda configuration, black dial with 2 white subdials, 45-minute counter, again, great football watch, great soccer watch. But joking aside, the Altavia itself is, of course, a very iconic reference. And this example sold for 10,200. Yes, I mean, look, these are auction prices. I think they're indicative of certain things, but a lot of the watches that we are looking at here can certainly be acquired on the secondary markets for cheaper, if not significantly cheaper. A lot of times, much cheaper. So you're absolutely right, Lux Report. But educationally, I think it's important. Increasingly, vintage Hoya is trending upwards. It is gaining more interest, but there are still great deals, especially if you compare some of these vintage Hoyas to the Daytonas from the same period, which are really of similar quality. I mean, you cannot deny the significance, the importance of a Hoya from that period, in terms of design, in terms of quality, in terms of significance. Again, the Universal Genève Compacts, the Nina Rindt version, that used to be a decent deal. Nowadays, those are selling for $15,000, $20,000. So when you compare it to Daytonas, which go for mid 60s Daytonas, mid to late 60s Daytonas, which go for 50,000 and up, and the sky is the limit. You compare it with Universal Genève Compacts, which again goes for 15, 20,000, and the sky is the limit for more unique examples, exotic dials, and whatever else. The Hoyas still present a great option. And of course, whether I'm picking up examples from Chrono 24 and especially from an auction, you have to always imagine that these prices are probably 10, 15, at times 20% above the realistic market pricing of these watches. But by and large, it's important to look at auctions, I think, to look at trends. What is popular? What is trending down? Are these pieces even selling? If they're selling, how much are they appreciating or depreciating? And as you see in this auction, everything seems to have depreciated from certain values a few months back. This particular example of the 3646H, of course, which is known as the Andretti, with the 24-hour bezel, with that reverse panda configuration, has a premium attached to it for that reason. This is a 3646H. Hoya Altavia from lot 38, which sold for 11,475 pounds sterling, including the premium. Racing R, how to deal with watch frustrations. Does the perfect watch exist? What would be the perfect one and done watch? Those are weighty questions, Racing R. Maybe that should be the topic of our next conversation. Orange Hand says, vintage Camaro with the Valjoux 72 is still a great value in my view, underrated design. I agree. A lot of the Hoyas from the 60s, I think, still are important watches and still, to a certain extent, unrecognized in terms of their value. I mean, look at this piece, for example. People go crazy for the Ultraman, right? And so do I think, as an aesthetic object, at least, not something that I would necessarily go out of my way to own. But this Carrera, which has a more cushion-shaped case, panda dial, beautiful inner tachometer bezel, or I should say tachometer scale, and an orange chronograph seconds hand. I mean, what a beautiful sporty chronograph, right? Full bracelet as well, the condition of which is probably questionable considering the age, but they don't really show the stretch here. And God knows what kind of trick they may have done when taking the picture. So I don't want to blame anything. I don't want to start any rumors, but you never know. But this piece, look, even in the context of this auction, the reference 73653 from 1970, hand-wound chronograph, 3 registers, beautiful piece of design, sells for $35.70, including the premium. That's a great watch and a great price. I mean, check out the Hoya Carrera reference 73653. Lovely piece. Right? Because of the caliber, probably it's less desirable, but I mean, it's still a great piece. Another great piece, and recognizably good deal. You had the blue version. This is the red version, so to speak, right? Again, beautiful silver dial, minimal red for the contrast. Great looking watch on a leather strap. This is Carrera 3647T, built on the Valjoux 92 hand-wound caliber. It sold for $3,825, including the premium. That was lot 42. Ah, man. Yeah, these are big questions, Racing R. How to deal with watch frustrations. You know, one way to deal with them is not to go into any rash purchases. Plan it out carefully. Study, if necessary, for months and years. Source the best example that your money can afford from ideally expert dealers. If you are getting something that is possibly questionable in terms of condition, right, in terms of service history, etc., make sure that you have a good watchmaker on your side, right? I make this point over and over again, and some people think I'm exaggerating, but you know, when you move into a new neighborhood, if you still have some hair left on your head, which I do, not for too much longer, but I still do, you find a good barber, right? If you have a few nice leather shoes, you find a cobbler. If you have a few great watches, if you have something that you like to call a collection, you find a watchmaker, right? Everyone talks about, you know, buy the seller, and you know, if you're buying vintage watches, it's you know, it's very difficult, so you have to go in with someone who can counsel you, who can curate your collection, and I completely agree. That's why I provide those services for modern and contemporary watches as well. But people keep forgetting that you need a watchmaker as well. You need someone who knows how to take care of those watches over a long time. So those little problems don't turn into big frustrations, right? They can be taken care of very quickly and probably for much cheaper than the kind of service charge that the big four have. The perfect watch does not exist, if you ask me. And for people who are incorrigible like us, the watch collectors, will never have a one and done watch. Those are my quick answers, but I think all of these questions deserve a very long discussion where we can unpack them, some of their elements. But Eric L, being a great member of the audience and a loyal viewer of this live stream, one and done, Platinium. Platinium is the official pronunciation of that noble cold metal on this channel. Rather than platinum, we like saying platinium. And as you know, El Famoso Profesor is currently in a quest for a platinum Rolex watch. So that's Eric L's reference right there. I appreciate you, Eric. I mean, once we are starting to develop our own language and have our own inside jokes, we are certainly getting somewhere in this channel. Number 42 is something that I really, really love. This is a reference 7753. So in many ways, you have everything that was so lovely about those references we saw at lot 42 and also at lot 33, right? So you have a lot of the beautiful balanced design elements from reference 3647, and you have something maybe a little more modern here. I think the beads of rice bracelets that come with Hoyas of this vintage are an absolute delight to wear, to look at. I mean, it's certainly the vibe. This is a great watch, and something you can find for much cheaper, certainly, since it won't be presented as having been once belonged to a gentleman driver or bought from a London auction house. So lend an eye and study the Carrera reference 7753 here in reverse panda on a rice grain bracelet at lot 43. It sold for 10,200 pounds sterling, including the premium. $44 is again another Hoya, another Autavia that's named after yet another race car driver, Jo Ziffert. This is a Panda Autavia with the date at 6 o'clock and the tachometer on a rotational bezel, cushion-shaped case, here matched on a leather rally strap. This is a piece that sold for $76.50 in pounds sterling, including the premium. Autavia Jo Ziffert, reference 73,463, sold for 7,650 pounds sterling. Nick Butter, hey, and Michael Buffer. Oh my God. We are getting ready to rumble, my friend. That's for sure. Nick Butter says, I think your watch parallels your lifestyle. Absolutely. I mean, on one level, yes. On another level, the connection is not so direct, right? I mean, I love tweed jackets, but unfortunately, I don't live in a manor outside of the city limits, right? I don't have a hunting lodge. I don't even hunt. I don't shoot pheasants. but I love myself a tweed jacket, right? I also like safari jackets and military fatigues once every so often, but I'm a pacifist, right? And I certainly haven't gone on a safari. So I agree on a certain level, but I think the connection in modern life, where we mostly dwell in urban settings and live this civilized um, existence with office jobs for most of us, or more recently, work from home kind of gigs. Um, I don't know if we can have this sort of direct connection with the watch you wear and your lifestyle, right? But it should certainly inspire a certain lifestyle, such as you're not wearing a thick adventure watch that won't fit under a cuff to a business meeting. I think as a general rule, that's a beautiful suggestion, and it should be a universal. Thank you, Nick Butter, for sharing that. And vice versa, you will not wear a museum watch to a scuba diving lesson. Yeah, I think a nice Seiko diver would serve you nicely, unless you opt for something even more iconic and pricey. Eric L says, seeing these old Hoyas really makes the Tag dynasty seem like a completely different realm. It should be. That is my intention. Look, once again, it might seem a little easier and more facile to say, yeah, we're looking at Hoyas, not Tag Hoyas. The idea is a lot of these brands, including Rolex and Patek, have such storied pasts that whatever nitpicking we have to do with the contemporary handling of those brands, with the caretakers that sit on that heritage today, the past is undeniable. The archives are there, and God bless, a lot of these models are very well preserved. I mean, you can find a lot of great examples of these watches from 60s, from 70s. It's just great. 41 is Steve McQueen. The Monaco reference 1133B that was made famous by ending up on the wrist of the King of Cool during the filming of Le Mans, the movie. Hoya has advertisements from that era where they explain the placement of the crown on the left flank at 9 o'clock as a gentle reminder to the owner and user of this chronograph that you never have to wind it. Since the Monaco, of course, and the caliber that Hoya designed for it, the caliber 12, was actually one of the first, along with, for example, the Zenit El Primero caliber 400, one of the first self-winding chronograph movements. The Hoya Monaco, in particular, was the first waterproof integral self-winding chronograph. This is, again, a beautiful watch on a bracelet. The Monaco Steve McQueen reference 1133B at lot 41, sold here for 12,750. Here is a rare example of the of the Josefet with so-called albino hands. I particularly love the blue accents on this watch. I can get somewhat picky about vintage pieces sometimes. You know, I love when the loom ages into this creamy yellow, but I'm not a huge fan of the pumpkin, and I completely despise it when it ends up this sort of minty toothpaste green. But I am a huge fan of the blue accents on this dial, both as index marks and on the centrally deployed chronograph seconds as well. This is once again a beautiful piece. The Josefet, the Hoya Altavia, reference 1163T in this case. The so-called albino hands can make it seemingly difficult to read the watch, but I think the blue accents actually take care of any problem that might arise with that. And lot 48 for this automatic chronograph sold for 10,200. Again, you see there are a lot of more unique examples. I'm passing over some of them in silence. So if you want to attract my attention, feel free to send in the lot number in the chat if you want me to discuss it. Lot 52. This is a true big eye. You see with those sharp Dauphine hands. You can even call them sword hands in this case. It has 3 oversized subdials, oversized chronograph registers, Arabic numeral at 12 o'clock, rotational timing bezel. This Altavia looks like a cross between a diving watch and a chronograph. So quite a beautiful specimen, very attractively aged from a certain perspective, not necessarily from my personal perspective, but very attractive nonetheless. This is lot 52. Altavia Big Sub, reference 2446M. It did not actually sell at lot 52. The lower end of the estimate was 50,000, so presumably the reserve was right there or right around there, and that was not met. This was from the collection of the same gentleman driver. There's a Hoya Montreal, which is a PVD-coated, blacked-out Hoya chronograph with both a tachometer and a pulsometer on the rejo. It's a 2-register chronograph with the date at 6 o'clock, with cushion-shaped case. An automatic chronograph could be very attractive for the right person. I think it has a very futuristic look. By now, retro-futuristic, of course, since this watch is from mid-70s. It's again Hoya Montreal at lot 55, a reference 110501N. It sold for 3,825 pounds sterling, including the buyer's premium. Quite enlarged, and again, you can immediately tell this as that famous caliber 12, the self-winding chronograph movement, since it has the crown at 9 o'clock rather than the traditional 3. You have the Monza in PVD as well, right next to it. Very similar, but the running seconds, as you can see, is at 10 o'clock here. That's rather unusual, but something that you see in Hoya chronographs of this particular era. And lot 56, which is a Hoya Monza in a black PVD coated Goth kind of iteration, which sold for 5,355, including the premium. At lot 59, you have Hoya Verona, yet another automatic chronograph by Hoya. You can see it at 9. This has perhaps a little more of a traditional design, other than the prominent placement of the crown at 9 o'clock. You have the date at 6, but otherwise wonderfully balanced 2-register chronograph in all black on a leather strap. This is lot 59, a Hoya Verona, reference 110213N. That sold for a little less than 4,500 in pounds sterling, including the premium. A lot of beautiful hand-wound and automatic chronographs in this gentleman's collection. We have at 60 Lemania chrono from 1940. With Arabic numerals and a multimeter scale, as you can see, with the telemeter at the perimeter of the dial and the tachometer snailed into the center of the dial. You have cathedral hands, a very classic design with an oversized crown, quite legible, luminous at the time against a black dial. That was a reference 50744 at lot 60, 1940s Lemania chronograph, which sold for 38.25 in pounds sterling, including the buyer's premium. And again, this is a piece that's jumbo for its time period in a 38 millimeter case. You have another classic here. This is these Hoyas that were made for the Bundeswehr, I think are a great alternative to the Type 20, both in a vintage and also contemporary way. You can certainly find these for cheaper than the realized hammer price here, which is 6,375 pounds sterling, including the premium. And I will tell you why why you might actually prefer this to the Type 20. First of all, these are actually 43 millimeters, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of the case size, 42. I really strongly remember that it was 43, but 42, 43, certainly a lot larger than the 38 millimeter classic Type 20 in both its military issued and civilian market editions. It has also, in a lot of the instances, a 3H sign here in red to signify the tritium luminous material on the dial, which is a great aesthetic if you ask me. I mean, when it comes to vintage Rolexes, we go crazy about anything that has red writing of some sort against the black dial. And I think that's what these Bundeswehr Hoya chronographs also very attractive. And I also like the rather thick and beautifully graduated rotational bezel as well for the timing. I think these are great chronographs, especially if you prefer a larger chronograph. They're beautiful pieces of design. You can find them in the Hoya edition, mostly 60s watches for the Bundeswehr. And then you also have the Leonidas versions of these, which were issued to the Italian military. So you have two options there for a larger, in a way, bolder version of that pilot's chronograph that duplicates a lot of what we like about the Type 20 watches, the French Aéronaval type of pilot's chronographs, yet in perhaps a bolder, larger, and one might even say sportier manner. So this Lot 61 is a great example of that. I especially love the ones that have the 3H sign in a circle in red writing here at 6 o'clock. They're beautiful watches and can certainly be sourced for much cheaper than this. Nick Butter, thank you so much, man. Have I seen Lot 53? It's a Hoya. I don't know if it's a pocket watch or a desk clock. Interesting. Thank you for drawing my attention to it. Let's go right back. This is a chronograph stopwatch. And I mean, you can certainly use it with that as a stand in a way, if you want to use it as a desk piece. But obviously, these are actually made to be bolted onto the dashboard of a sports car, right? So that's why it has that stand with it. This is a Super Otavia 24 hours GMT. It's an open face chronograph stopwatch. 12 jewel Valjoux caliber 5 manual wind column wheel chronograph, black luminous 24-hour markers, white outer, a fifth of a second division, silvered subsidiary dial at 12 for 30-minute recording. This is a 30-minute totalizer there. Running seconds here. Chronograph seconds centrally deployed in orange. and then a 24-hour dial for the main time, and comes on again on a mounting plate, which can be in a way modified and somehow used, I think, as a stand if you want to put it on your desk. Something like this could be a nice accessory in the right setting. But of course, the mounting plate originally is designed to allow it to be bolted onto the dashboard of a sports car, where this would be used as a veritable chronograph in the right setting. This lot 53, the Hoya Super Ottavia, 24 hours GMT, was sold for a little more than £7,000 sterling, including the premium. Thanks for drawing my attention to it, Nick Butter. I appreciate you. And Eric L says, love the military pedigree pieces. That Bundeswehr is sweet. And it's, hey, thankfully it's from the 60s. So I don't, at least from a personal standpoint, I don't resent the German Military Association for that reason. Here's an Orfina-made Porsche design chronograph. Again, an iconic piece they reissued earlier this year. Of course, the earlier PVD coating was not altogether resistant to the ravages of time, so to speak, so they do wear off. I don't necessarily mind that look, honestly. For me, this is not much different than a well-worn stainless steel sports watch from the same period. But I agree, of course, the PVD coating, nowadays DLC coating, and other types of all black materials are supposed to convey a certain aesthetic, that sort of pitch black look, the goth lord look. I understand. But to me, even this has a certain charm, so I appreciate it. The Porsche design chronograph, of course, is nowadays a classic in its own right. It was, of course, released 50 years ago by now, more than 50 years ago, when Ferdinand Porsche established Porsche design separate from the mothership, and this chronograph was one of the first designs that he came up with, one of the first things he actually released under the brand. So it's very significant for Porsche. It's very significant for Porsche design. Pardon me, and as also an early example of a serially produced blacked out watch, it is also significant for from a historical standpoint. Lot 62 sold for £2,550 sterling, including the premium. You're most welcome, my friend. And of course, I love that it has a German day wheel as well, as you can see. Mitt being short for Mittwoch, Wednesday. Literally meaning, by the way, in German, mid-week, right? The so-called hump day. Since Nick drew our attention to the other chronograph, there was a piece that was apparently withdrawn. Very rare and interesting cut beam timer, as they call it, for racing timing. fascinating piece, with a chronograph stopwatch right in the middle and a kind of electronic control board right around it. I want to read it. Movements, it says, comprising two lamps, two beam receptors, the timing recorder with analog Monte Carlo stopwatch, and printer, leads, and a spare lamp. It was unfortunately withdrawn, but here are the footnotes. Jack Hoya's interest in racing and understanding of the exposure created by sports timing led Hoya Leonidas into a highly competitive and ever-evolving sports world. In 1974, Hoya became the timer for all Ferrari's Formula One endeavors, having created the groundbreaking recognition system, ACIT. They were invited by Formula One to be the timer for the races, but turned it down as it came with a huge expense which had to be borne by Hoya. However, in 1992, they became the official timer and remained so for 12 years. So this, produced in 1970, was quite path-breaking, I'm sure, in terms of its technology. Today, it remains a relic of a bygone time, and I suspect Hoya may have had it withdrawn and bought it themselves, perhaps, from the auction. I mean, it sounds like a piece that should really be in their museum rather than part of a private collection. This was Lot 54, part of that single owner collection, which was withdrawn, even though it came with a relatively low estimate of 1,200 to 1,800 pounds sterling. All right, so we went through that particular single owner collection. Lot 64 is very well patinated Cartier Santos, a relatively early example, again has its own charm, and that patina turns the Cartier branding into some sort of ghost writing. Heat-blued Breguet hands against those elongated Roman numerals. It remains a beautiful aesthetic in either case, even in this condition. And this Santos from roughly 1920 sold for $20,400 at lot 64. Here is another and newer Vacheron Constantin 222. This is roughly from year 1985, reference 46003 at lot 69, and it sold for 31,800 pounds sterling. Hey JB, lovely to see you, man. Did they arrive? Do you want to share with us? You know what I'm talking about. You have a two-tone Daytona from the 6-digit era. 116523, 503, I should say. Stainless steel with polished gold center links, gold pushers and crown, and a gold tachometer bezel, gold accents on the white dial as well. A beautiful, beautiful Rolex Cosmograph Daytona from just a few years back, from late 2018, specifically a little more than 4 years. This is lot 72, and it was sold for a little more than 15,000, including the premium. '71 is 4-digit day dates and 1803, which is one of the most conspicuous vintage day dates references, especially in yellow gold with champagne dial. This is at once one of the most iconic and recognizable, but also dime a dozen kind of references and examples of the day dates. But it is nevertheless quite beautiful, as you can see here. And this particular example sold for a little more than 10,000 pounds sterling, including the premium. Again, it's a little over the market price for these things these days, but it shows you how much prices have been dipping, and they will certainly continue to do so. One of the Daytona Beach pieces at lot 73, the yellow example, it was basically coming as a full set, as you can see here, with the yellow tinted mother of pearl dial, yellow lizard strap, with a déployant buckle that matches the white gold case. This piece, which had a lower estimate of 40,000 pounds sterling, did not actually sell. And it came as a full set, right? So that says something for this kind of collectible piece. I know it's probably the least desirable among all of those, because the pink has its own charm in a way, and the blue and green are as hot as anything, really. But you know, this is still a very important piece, and it did not sell at 40, which admittedly is already a high price compared to how neglected and looked over these pieces were when they were released, and even until 5 years ago. But at the peak of the market, these were easily selling for 50,000 and more. So if we were actually still facing a healthy market, this would have sold at 40,000 pounds sterling for sure. Pardon me. At lot 75, a floating big red with this gorgeous silver dial, black subdials, and a black acrylic bezel. From the family of the original owner, this is a Rolex Cosmograph Daytona reference 6263. And it sold for 53,220, including the buyer's premium. What a gorgeous watch. Oh, it's delayed until Monday. All right. Well, I look forward to it. Orange Hand says, it's been a while since I saw an auction with this many unsold lots. Hey, this is the new order of the day. That's why I try to look at all these different auction houses, right? If you only look at the most successful, the best curated and most popular auction houses, you'll see that most things sell, if not everything. Um, you shift your focus a little bit from what may fall through the cracks, even with a distinguished house such as Bonhams. This is what you see, right? 76, the Apollo Soyuz, the limited edition, right? Again, as much as one chides Omega for having too many limited editions, this is one limited edition that is relatively desirable. And that did not sell with the lower estimate, which probably coincided with the reserve price that wasn't met at £25,000 sterling. The Explorer 2 reference 1655, which is a classic collectible vintage Rolex, the first example of the Explorer 2 with a 24-hour hand and a fixed matching stainless steel 24-hour bezel, a model that is known as Steve McQueen because it was a cool watch, simply, not because Steve McQueen actually wore it. It's also known as Freccione because that 24-hour hand has this arrow-like tip. The Italian collectors came up with that name. It came out, pardon me, Explorer 2 came out around 1971. So this is a relatively early example. At the lower end of the estimate, it was 15,000 and simply didn't sell. Great White, a sea dweller with all white 4 lines of writing from that first reference, 1665, at lot 78, did not sell. The reserve was not met, and presumably it was around 10,000. '79 had a tropical dial single red Submariner with meters first. I think the patina on this is a little more romantic, perhaps a little more desirable for that reason. And this one actually sold for a relatively good price. Good price for the seller, I should say, almost 20,000, including the premium. That was lot 79, sold for 19,125, including the buyer's premium. Let me take a quick break to grab a drink of water. If you would like me to pay particular attention to any of the lots in this auction, feel free to send in the lot number with a super chat, and I will do a deep dive on that particular watch from a historical and horological perspective. Let me leave you with another lot that did not sell, that was lot 80. JB says Big Red is the grail for me. It's a very attractive watch for sure. By the way, guys, please hit the like button while you are at it. If you have been enjoying the show, if you have learned anything from it, just hit the upvote. It really, really makes a huge difference for me. This is Big Triangle Seamaster 300. Of course, this particular example has real military provenance, issued to the Royal Navy, offered on behalf of the family of the original owner, from that Annus Mirabilis 1968. Unfortunately, with an estimated value of $40,000 to $60,000, the watch actually did not sell. These Big Triangle Seamasters from the era are certainly very gorgeous, with these twisted lugs, cases made by Iguenin Frères, much like the Speedmaster cases, much like the Universal Genève Paul Rauder cases, very attractive pieces. Circle T, of course, is a great tell of the mil-spec provenance of the watch. In this case, unfortunately, the piece did not sell. Seamaster 300, reference 165024. And the original owner of the piece was in the 15th, 19th King's Royal Hussars, A Squadron from 1960 to 1982. Amazing watch, great provenance, but did not sell, which is too bad. You have a beautiful Breitling Co-Pilot with, again, 3 oversized chronograph registers. This is the 765 Avi. A very beautiful piece of design. Again, great pilot's chrono. .41mm case size. Very reasonable, very wearable. Great vintage chronograph that would appeal to a lot of contemporary tastes as well, that sold for right under £10,000 sterling, including the premium at lot 81. I have seen less attractive examples in the recent past sold for more, and I was getting exasperated for it because this is a vintage reference that I really like as well. As a buyer and as a collector, it's good to see the downturn sometimes. I wish it did not come with more painful, larger economic and financial consequences for all of us. A pre-moon Speedmaster Professional did not sell for £6,000 to £8,000 sterling estimated value. Did not sell. A jumbo with a service dial in the two-tone setting, a 5402BA did not sell, with the lower end of the estimate at 30,000, which very likely coincides with the reserve. That was not met. And lot 85 therefore did not sell. Certainly that, well, I mean, their release of the Avi Copilot sold relatively well. Let me see. I think in stainless steel, in fact, it may have already sold out. But let me see before I speak too quickly. Honestly, I would rather go with a vintage example, but you know, maybe, I mean, that's just my taste. Let's put it like that. Oh yeah, this steel one. No, it has not sold out. This is it. Right? It's slightly different, of course, right? This is an all black version. This doesn't have the big eye, not even at the minute counter at 3 o'clock, which has traditionally been the case. So this is more, this is more type 20 looking piece in Breitling's interpretation, with a jump hour rotational bezel rather than the 60 minutes timing bezel. But this itself was a very attractive watch, and it was a hit, mostly in stainless steel. Maybe not as much as the Navitimer reissue, but still, I think it's more attractive in that Panda configuration, or reverse Panda, if you want to call it. But yeah, that's a beautiful watch. Lot 81 specifically. And Nick Butter was saying, I kind of see why the Seamaster 300 with the military provenance did not sell. The original strap is replaced. Yeah, I mean, among other things, I think, you have to, for those kinds of watches, sometimes you just have to find the right buyer. If it doesn't hit the market at the right time, when the right person is in the room. So if it's not consigned with the right auction house, sometimes, you never know. So yeah, it is a shame nonetheless. The Jumbo in two-tone with a service dial at lot 85 did not sell. At 83, you had a beautiful Panda with the black acrylic bezel and there's no Daytona writing, as you see on this Cosmograph reference 6263. The dial is gorgeously preserved. I really like these particular examples, these kinds of references. Those black sub-registers against a silver dial and with the acrylic tachometer bezel are quite beautiful. This one didn't sell either, with the estimates, which at the lower end read 40,000. That was lot 86. Another one, at 3700s, which is the original Nautilus Jumbo reference, at lot 87, did not sell. It had papers with it, as well as photocopies of the service paperwork and correspondence of recent time, 2020 and October 2022. So recently serviced, original Jumbo reference, Patek Philippe Nautilus, first purchased in May 1981, so around the fifth anniversary of the model's release. Lot 87, with a reserve around 70,000 pounds sterling, did not sell. The more popular piece of that Daytona Beach set, in green with the chrysoprase dial, did not sell either. That was lot 88, with the lower end of the estimate set at 50,000. Presumably the reserve was right around there as well, and it was not met. An almost brand new 5167/1A, which is the stainless steel Patek Philippe Aquanaut on the full matching bracelets, bought in 2022. That sold for 53,220 pounds sterling, including premium. Just to show you, by the way, how these kinds of pieces are in free fall, Tropical Watch, which is an offshoot of HQ Milton. It's founded by someone who broke off from HQ Milton, is selling a 2016 example, quite a pristine example of the Patek Philippe Aquanaut, on the rubber bands for 48,850, full set. Again, it's not necessarily cheap, still quite above the list price, right? So I'm not trying to say go ahead and buy it, but I'm just showing you that even a website like Tropical Watch, which is very much overpriced, is now putting up these kinds of watches, which were selling like hotcakes at the peak of the market. This is no longer the case, right? Even these kinds of websites, which are usually asking for quite a premium, are selling it priced to go. So stay put, remain patient. Even when it comes to these sorts of pieces that were very much hyped up in the past, but that are not necessarily limited production, that are not necessarily rare, they're gonna come all the way down. I don't know how far, but the bottom has fallen off. You never know. this special edition that was made for the Royal Squadron of the Tudor Black Bay 58. It's marked as such, 32, in parentheses, the Royal Squadron. Comes with a matching badge and as a full set at lot 93. It sold for $19,125, including the premium. The present watch was especially made in a limited edition of 32 pieces for the number 32, the Royal Squadron. The squadron actively operates in the VIP and general air transport roles from the Royal Air Force's Northolt in Greater London. Only known example to feature an Army number on the caseback, whereas others have Royal Air Force numbers, and this is offered in unworn condition. The Tudor watches are, of course, today the closest thing you can get to some of these vintage Rolexes and Omegas that were mil-spec and military issued and have these sorts of special markings and engravings that indicate their provenance. The double branding, the limited editions, these sorts of military supplied pieces are nowadays mostly reserved to Tudor, at least within the premises of Rolex. So these are interesting pieces and in a way promise to be future collectibles in that particular genre of mil-spec and military issued watches. This is lot 93, limited edition Tudor Black Bay, made for 32, the Royal Squadron. It's not actually, it's the Black Bay Heritage, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I apologize for saying Black Bay 53. Black Bay 58, what am I talking about? I ate too fast, I think. So sold for a little less than £20,000 sterling. I'll leave you with another unsold piece for a few minutes. JB, maybe you can entertain our audience while I take a short break. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I just imported a couple of watches and went through the process of buying something overseas and being able to get it through customs and border protection. So the way that this works when you buy it out of town, if it's over, I think the threshold's $2,500, is you've got to basically fill out a form, first of all, that gives your information, but then you value the dial and the movement as one set. That's like a flat fee, and then the case gets a considerable amount, and then the most imported taxed item is the bracelet. So this is kind of where it can go wrong importing. If you bring in any kind of leather or alligator or anything like that, it starts to get into a huge paperwork problem. So when I bought a vintage watch that had alligator strap. After I bought it, I basically said, don't send me the strap. I don't want to declare it, take it off the invoice and leave it there. And then within 24 hours, it was cleared using FedEx. So if you use FedEx, they'll basically be the broker for you. They know all of the different codes that you have. As long as you turn in a watch worksheet that basically tells the type of metal that's involved. If it's a chronograph, if it's an automatic movement. But the 3 different segments that you're going to get taxed on in the different rates are the components of the dial and movement, and then the case, and then the bracelet or strap. You're back?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad finally it worked through. But I know that, you know, whenever anything comes through, you know, I've dealt with all sorts of stuff, including like wooden shoe trees, you know, that get caught up in when you properly declare these things, when you do your business through official channels, through legitimate channels,
right?
You do have to, you know, dot your I's and cross your T's, and I'm glad you took the initiative to say, you know, let's not deal with an alligator strap, because I'm not even sure if that was original to the watch anyways.
I don't think it was.
Yeah, so it was just a presentation at any rate. If you really want that kind of strap, trust me, getting it yourself will probably be much less headache than importing it in that sort of setting. But so finally everything clear, then it will be in your hands on Monday.
On Monday. Yeah, so early next week, let's do an unboxing. I'll get to show it off.
Nice. I look forward to it,
yeah.
man. Nick Butter says hi.
Howdy.
And Bruce G says best to send strap on separate parcels. Again, Bruce, that can be possible. Maybe when you're dealing with individuals, perhaps a close friend or a business associate of some sort. But if you are dealing with, for example, an auction house, which was the case with JB, you know, you have to make sure that you declare everything carefully. Yes, I know the auction houses already have also their ways of, you know, magically delivering certain things, but sometimes it's just not worth the trouble. Again, if we were talking about an original strap, you might say, hey, hold it for me. I'm going to be in Geneva. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be there. I will come pick it up. Sure.
And I think that's one of the things you've got to watch out for is kind of one of the side hustles, is that if you don't pick up an item that's been auctioned, I think you have like maybe 14 to 30 days. There's some set time period by which if you don't pick it up, they start to incur pretty expensive storage fees for keeping up with it. And I've got to figure out in this case where I didn't pick up the complete order. I mean, are they donating it? I don't know what they're going to do with it, but I really don't want to be paying, you know, storage fees that are going to accrue. You know, it's all in it's in that fine print, I'm sure, of the agreement. But I mean, I could have them discard it, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm sure. Look, I mean, I'm sure they can use it to present another watch. If you just tell them kindly, you know, please don't.
Yeah.
You know, don't send it to me. I don't want it. I'm not gonna pick it up later.
Right.
Thank you for everything.
I think there's a 10% chance that it's actually in the box. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. No comment on my side.
Yeah, I hope not. So you have your Type 20 on. I'm wearing.
Yes, sir.
The.
Nice. Chrono Gang.
The Chrono. Yep. This is Tudor. Wow.
And you're also wearing really a chronograph jacket as well. Very fitting, the leather jacket. I like it.
Yeah, this one's. I was just out to dinner, so just got back not too long ago.
Nice. With the family, I'm assuming.
Yes.
With the missus.
But yeah, this is one where you don't want to wear, I guess, precious metal with. I leave it a little bit undone just so I don't get scratches on the outside, but I just think that precious metal sometimes would hit this. I think stainless is better when you're wearing.
Yeah.
You know.
Even with, you know, look, again, I'm someone who wears all my watches on a daily basis, but when I wear a jacket with a zipper, sometimes, like, when I'm wearing a bracelet watch,
Yeah,
I kind of touch it like this, and my heart goes buzz.
I know.
I baby them so much that I
Right.
feel, it's any little hairline scratch will do something. But of course, I mean, these stainless steel, even precious metal, they should be able to take it, and we should learn to live with these sorts of small scratches, because otherwise it takes the joy away. But of course, I mean, I think it's always admirable that people pay some attention and to take some care of their watches, even when it's a sports watch.
Sure.
It's important.
Yeah, I mean, with these watches coming in, I didn't even go. I walked past the AD today, but I figured, oh man, today's gonna be the day they're gonna offer me Batman, and
So now it's funny. Now you're trying to avoid your idea.
not really. I don't. I
They
just
might
I
have,
don't
they
put
might
myself in that
actually,
situation, so I don't have to say yes.
that's it. They might actually offer you something.
Right. There's gonna be a time when they're gonna have to when I'm gonna get far enough up the list where they've crossed off everyone else, and then maybe I'll get a call from them. But it's like I don't know. Like I was kind of in the mood today. Shopping today was just probably the thanks, Bruce G. Today I just wanted to get a Christmas present for my wife and get out. And that didn't include going to the authorized dealer to buy the junk they had. So,
Wow.
yeah. And there's another thing. If I buy, I guess not a primo piece, but I would say something like a soft piece, something I like, but something I'll wear. Like I would say this is a soft piece. I don't like wearing it at the AD where I didn't buy that same soft piece that they sell.
Mm-hmm.
I want to buy the soft piece that I bought at that AD, and it plays into, to get me to the next level. But if I'm wearing four different, if I've got an Omega or another one that I didn't happen to buy at that one, it's just one of the reasons.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, by and large, unfortunately, they're making you play a game, so you need to roll by their rules and appease them in the best way possible.
Right. But I think today is one of those days where you don't get your bang for your buck on time. If you go on like a Tuesday afternoon or a Wednesday afternoon, or right before lunch, maybe they haven't seen or done anything all day. If you happen to buy something small that day, it's probably the first sale of the day, and you can talk to them about what you really want, and then you just stay in contact with them and follow up. But it's going to get to a point where they're going to have excess capacity. There was more. I've been in 2 ADs in the last 2 weeks, just traveling, and there were more in the cases than I've seen, since the pandemic, for sure.
Right.
And yeah.
And the proportions, right? Even when they had exhibition only models, if they have one exhibition model on display, chances are they have another one in the vault. So it's a game of proportions. When they have a lot of watches, well, more watches in the case, it means they have even more in the vault that are either earmarked for certain customers or waiting for that special customer who will bundle it up with a number of different things.
For sure. So I was thinking, in my collection, I still want a two-tone, even though they're, just beaten down. The two-tone, I think, from that auction, including the premium, was $15,000 on an example with the white dial.
You mean the two-tone Daytona?
Two-tone Daytona, and then I think lot number 1 was the Bumblebee, and I think that was including premium $12,000. I mean, at that point, I think you've got 3 choices on a two-tone watch, right? You go bluesy, which takes care of the sub aspect a lot of times, and also a blue dial from Rolex. the Bumblebee, which is, the black and yellow Bumblebee, or the two-tone Daytona. And if you think about it, if all of them, you could get either of those two probably at retail around 12 or 12 to 15. And now that those same prices are creeping back to retail, so you can really get the choice that you want. I mean, for them to offer you either in a pre-owned or new fashion, you're really looking at almost the same price. And either one of those three, to me, is a banger.
Yeah, I think now, I mean, look, a two-tone Daytona, even as your first purchase, maybe from an AD, could have been realistic, except for the most, direst of times, except for the highest sellers market. I think nowadays, if you walk into an AD and you really want a two-tone Daytona with a white or black dial, you tell them, hey, I don't care, black dial, white dial, whichever. I think you can realistically get it, maybe with a few months wait. But and again, the reason that makes sense is because the list price now is, I think, around 18,000 actually. That's without the diamonds on the dial. And on the secondary market, especially if you are looking for earlier models, you can get it around that price already. So at retail, it starts becoming much less attractive to flippers and other sorts of shady dealers, which means it starts going to an actual customer. So
yeah, I have a couple still that I want that are still on the wish list that I've planted seeds at each of the places. I mean, I still want the silver dial OP41. I know this is not a glam watch. My wife has the Datejust that's in 26 millimeters with the silver dial. And so if we went out, we could have the same color. I don't know how much, but to add to the collection with the silver dial, that white and black.
I think that's, to me, that is more representative of the OP than any of the other fancy colors they have.
Yeah. And it's, it's just the way that it kind of glides between silver and gold there.
Yeah.
With the different textures. I mean, it's beautiful. I like that it's not fluted as well. I mean, just with the smooth bezel on this one, this OP41 is beautiful. And at retail, they're like 8,000. I mean, maybe you lose 50% of the value over 10 years or something, but you're not, 6,000, okay. 6,150. I mean, come on. Like, I would wear that one over the Omega that I wear quite often. That's the same size. I have a Aquaterra.
I don't know. I kind of, again, with all due respect, I kind of like your Aquaterra a little better than this. But I think and OP with the silver dial, to me, is, again, much more representative of the ethos of that line than any of these Neo Stella colorful dials. But again, I like them both. For me,
this is low maintenance though, right? You have,
I mean,
no date involved.
To me, again, Oyster Perpetual is a great watch at retail. Personally, I've never liked Rolexes with smooth bezels, perhaps for like a 1016 Explorer, but I understand their appeal. I think in a way it's more dressed down. It's more distilled. It's more plain. And it makes it, for that reason, a very attractive watch, a great option.
And the word on the street is these are very hard to get right now. I don't know if that's actually true. I think they've got Datejust galore, but the OPs seem to be, from the folks that I've talked to, a little bit more limited. I don't know if timing or if it just happens to be.
No, I think look, just because it's not the colorful OP, it's not necessarily so much easier to get. I mean, there's a reason that the profile of Oyster Perpetual suddenly rose with the increasing popularity of that turquoise, coral red and Rolex green and saffron yellow, whatever you want to call these colors. It lifted the profile of the entire line. So everything in Oyster Perpetual nowadays is much more desirable than it has ever been. I wouldn't be surprised that most, if not all, Oyster Perpetuals are right this second more desirable than date justs.
Yeah. But on this one, if you think about it, the thing that makes this one is everything that it's not. Yes, it's not fluted. No, it doesn't have a date. Doesn't have the Cyclops. But that's why I like it. I mean, it's just a perfect execution to me of the Oyster bracelet, the Oyster case. I mean, it's just no fluff. I don't get into the craze about the different colors.
Honestly, I think the OP is best. 41 is a little too big for my taste. Again, personal preference. No one cares about what I think. But when it comes to the dials, I think, between silver, black, and this blue, you have a lot of great options. And I'm sure they're relatively easier to get compared to the green and yellow and everything else. So, and of course, they have already discontinued the others anyways for the 41.
Okay, so that would be the yellow, and the yellow's no longer available.
No, turquoise and like the so-called Tiffany blue, coral red, yellow. I'm not sure. I think they discontinued yellow at 41 as well. Absolutely, yeah. But the green is still available, which I'm sure is also very, very desired too.
Yeah, and that green, to me, that green's better than the day-date green. And I think the blue sub is or the blue sub, or the bluesy sub, or I think is better than this blue that are in the OP. I mean, it's just a different shade, right?
Thank you, Eric, by the way, for your PayPal contribution. I'm sorry I didn't mention it before, but I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. It's hard, man. For me, I'm always of two minds with the day dates. In a certain sense, I can't wait until I'm 20 years older, 1 foot in the grave, so I can proudly rock a day date, and in which case olive green will be my absolute first choice. And I think for that watch, the olive green is so much more beautiful, whereas this particular green, I think with OP just works. It's a more subdued, but still a vibrant shade of green with a lacquered dial. I think this is also beautiful. I think the one they started offering with the yellow gold day date is a little lighter in shade than this, and I prefer actually this to that as well.
Right. But this one, does that hold a candle to the John Mayer green dial? Similar.
I'm not enamored with it. With all due respect, I like the from the same generation. I like the white gold with blue dial when it comes to those Daytona. Okay. Yeah, I think actually that's of those 4 pieces. The 2 stainless steel with black and white dial and the John Mayer. Of those 4, I like the white gold with the blue dial the most.
So I've got one topic to bring up, and then I'm gonna bounce off it and listen. But we were talking about the day date last time with Saad, and when we went to the configurator, if you want to get the platinum version, that they had basically kind of two two setups for it. I want you to search. It's not going to be on the Rolex website for the blue motif dial. It has the texture on it. I want to get your take on that and just kind of go through it with you. Because do you know which one I'm talking about?
In a platinum day date or
Platinum day date.
okay, I think I do. The motif dial, you mean the fluted motif dial, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Not sure how quickly I can dig it up, but I actually the honeycomb or the fluted motif like this.
It's hard for me to see because it's a phone that I'm sticking into. Unless you want to see. If you go to Nashville Watch It, there's certainly one for sale there. I don't know if you want to go there, but
no, I don't mind. But take a look at this just so I
you're
can.
gonna have to make it big. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So they have this one in a 41.
40, I think, for the day date.
Is it 40?
Yeah.
But I'm just curious. This is such a new watch. I think it came out just last year. I'm wondering why it wasn't on the website for you to be able to purchase, or is this another one that they only offered on a limited basis?
I hesitate to say, but as a rule of thumb, especially when it comes to the variety of dial options, some things are not on the website and not even on the printed catalog, yet they can be ordered. Right. So I think in the case of this dial, I'm sure it can still be ordered. It can probably be ordered even with the fluted bezel at this point, since now they can do that in platinum.
Yeah. I was just wondering, I mean, these are one of the pieces that you would almost never see in the case. Even, I mean, I haven't seen it I don't know that I've seen too many models of the day date anyway, but certainly no platinum.
Yeah, I think, look, maybe earlier when it first came out, first started falling into the dealers, I have had the dealer bring it out of the vault for me when the platinum anniversary Daytona had come out.
Right.
But even in that case, that's a kind of model that they have to special order, right? They might not have a customer who has ordered it through them, but they would say, yeah, I have a couple of customers in mind. I will certainly sell this watch. Let me order it.
Right.
It's not something that comes, in a whole case of 15 other things, and here is a platinum Daytona for you as well.
Yeah.
I hope you can sell it or something. I mean, that's not how these watches are ordered traditionally.
And I'm not forcing this guy. I haven't bought from this guy, but it does give me, there it is. It does give you a little bit of a barometer of what market price is, because this isn't marked up quite as high as Chrono 24. And if you watch the inventory coming in and out, there's pieces moving. But yeah, this is what I was talking about is 65,000.
And how much the new?
The other ones are I don't know.
The new platinum, I think, lists probably for
upper 60s, maybe.
Somewhere around $55,000 to $60,000, I think.
Yeah.
With the fluted bezel, if I'm not mistaken. And,
I don't know that it actually does. I was just really asking about it because it was just different. I don't know that that I love this configuration, except for it makes it a little bit more unique. Something about those hands and the way that those markers are gelling together just seems like something's off there.
I will put it this way. To me, it's not off at all. I would love this with fluted bezel as well. But again, I think this is a model that shines a little better perhaps with the smooth, because it's actually a very different vibe, if not an entirely different watch compared to the ice blue with Roman numerals, right? Let me put them back to back. Look.
Yeah.
So this is the new Platinum Day Date 40, right? Even in that cold noble metal with the platinum, with the fluted bezel and the Roman numerals, it's still a very dressy watch, right? You know, it has that sort of dignified look.
For sure.
Whereas this one, in a way, has a kind of flair to it. It's like a little more sporty in a way. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the dial pattern.
I'm getting used to it. I see, because the fluted part, I think because it's smooth, it dresses it down for sure.
The stick markers, all the luminous, material that's on the dial as well. It feels like a sportier.
You know what it is? It's an OP41 with two little date rings.
There you go. Except when you compare it to the list price, it's like 10 OP
right
ones. But yes, I get exactly what you mean.
The same watch we're marveling over. All right, well, great show. I'm a big fan.
Hey, man.
Off. Thanks for everybody.
Thank you so much, JB. We look forward to seeing your 2 new watches, hopefully, on Monday in a late show. I think that will be great fun, and we'll probably get to talk more about your experience bidding in an auction and finally acquiring these 2 watches that you have wanted for quite some time. Bruce G was, by the way, adding to the OP discussion. I've been on the hunt for an OP39 for a while. They go for a 9K plus, whereas you can get the black OP 39 millimeter for 7. A bit frustrating since they had the same short run. I think, yeah, it's sometimes, Bruce, sometimes it's, 9K plus for the white dial. Sometimes these kind of premiums that go with dial colors and configurations just don't make sense, at least at first blush. You have to really go into it and figure out why certain models get hyped up over others, certain colors are preferred over others. I think because Oyster Perpetual is understood to be a dressier, brighter, more playful piece than your average Rolex, which usually has a black dial, right? I mean, that's what most sports Rolexes, what most professional Rolexes do have. I think the white dial probably has a little bit of a premium for that reason. Coming back to the auction, this was lot 97. Was an extremely popular piece, as you know, the 5168s, which are the precious metal Aquanauts, are in a way extra jumbo. In white gold, you had this model in khaki green with the matching rubber strap, as well as in blue with the matching blue tropic strap. At 42 millimeters, pardon me, they were extremely popular as well. This one did not sell, presumably with a reserve that was not met. That was also around 80,000 pounds sterling. Sorry for the quick scroll. Cartier cloche, which is a reference 4337, again, a very uniquely shaped watch in a limited edition of hundreds by Cartier from 2021, sold for almost 25k pounds sterling, including the premium. At lot 99, a Cartier 18 karat yellow gold collection privée CPCP tag vis, sold for a little more than 15,000 pounds sterling, including the premium. This is one with retrograde hours, as you can see here. Again, one of those interesting and variable iterations, variations on the larger theme of tank. Uh, 5131R, which is a world time in pink gold with the cloisonné dial at lots 100. Actually sold for 75,900 pounds sterling, including the premium. Perhaps the most important piece in the auction, a Roger Smith. As you can see, a very special piece, all handmade through a painstaking process by Roger Smith in the Isle of Man, running seconds in this oversized subdial at 6 o'clock, power reserve, the varying guilloche decorations on the dial, the hour track laid out in Roman numerals on Breguet frosting, an absolute modern classic. Of course, comes as a full set with everything that goes with it in 18 karat yellow gold, hand wound with the coaxial escapements. This is a series 2 commission piece number 20-C, purchased a little more than a decade ago and sold for 516,900 pounds sterling, including the premium. This was the premier lot in the Bonhams London auction that took place last Wednesday on New Bond Street. A very rare commissioned piece crafted by Roger Smith. The beauty and simplicity. Sold for more than $500,000 in pounds sterling, including the premium. At lot 105, we have an FP Journe Octa réserve de marche. So, and a self-winding FP Journe Platinum watch with big dates and power reserve display. In their classic 38 millimeter case. Lot 105 sold for 63,300 pounds sterling, including the buyer's premium. 108, it's again, in and of itself, a great example of how the Cartier watches, both in vintage and limited edition reissue forms, have captured the horological imagination by the storm. The Cartier Pebble, one of those unique aesthetic objects by Cartier that also happen to be timepieces. This one is a 70s example made by Cartier London. And lot 108 sold for $239,700. And of course, the Pebble had its 50th anniversary. This is one of the original pieces for that reason. And the re-release, as it happens, has created a kind of re-energized attention and look towards this particular piece, which ended up selling for almost $250,000 in pounds sterling, including the buyer's premium. It's 239,700 pounds. So these were the 108 lots that were offered in auction. Once again, I'm going to post the link here if you want to draw my attention to any of the pieces. Feel free to send in your suggestion with the super chat. I think I have 2 more pieces that I want to show. After that, we will have about half an hour. So feel free to jump on the panel if you would like to join me in some watch talk, but I'm sure I can find some bits and pieces to talk about, because there was a lot of interesting stuff happening in the last few days. Lot 103, it's a classic time-only two-hander dress watch from Vacheron Constantin. I've always loved Vacheron's simple dress watches. Really, I mean, they are really known for their unique aesthetic touches, their daring designs, and also some very bold, colorful métier d'art pieces, right? You know, with enamel dials, cloisonné enamel, miniature paintings on the dial. Vacheron, in many ways, is the most artistic of the big four, most artistic of the so-called Holy Trinity, even. But that doesn't mean they don't get the simple things right. Right? When you go to a fancy Italian restaurant, You might go ahead and order the most expensive thing on the menu, by all means. When I was still at least a vegetarian, I used to order the cacio e pepe. You order the simplest thing on the menu and see if they can get those right. If they can't make a decent pasta that would be not only edible but delicious with just the addition of a little bit of pepper and a little bit of cheese, chances are they won't get the more ornate and complex dishes right either. And I think it's pretty much the same thing with these high horological brands, whether it's a recognizable name or a more boutique brand. And that might well be one of the reasons why sometimes the simplest, the purest, the most basic designs and models from those brands can be more desired than their complicated watches. But it's always important to look at these brands and see if they can get the simple things right. And Vacheron Constantin is a great example of how big brands, how a recognizable horological house gets simple things right. And that happens with these very elegant, thin, wearable dress watches. And here it's represented at lot 103 with the patrimony reference 81180/9159. This is a piece purchased in 2007. 40 millimeter piece, hand wound, so very nice and thin, with a clean, balanced cream dial in pink gold. It's a beautiful piece which sold for $8,925, including the buyer's premium. Vacheron historically makes beautiful, thin dress watches, and so does Audemars Piguet, by the way. Look for these kinds of things with self-winding or manual calibers from the late 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. There's so many treasures that are waiting to be unearthed and unearthed, and that still offer an incredible value proposition for the quality and heritage that these watches really present. So that's Vacheron Constantin patrimony from the first decade of the 21st century in rose gold, time only, pure two-hander, that sold for right around £9,000 sterling. #104, an iconic yet relatively disregarded Gérald Janta design, the Cartier Pasha. The moon phase is always very special when it comes to these watches. And what you have here is not only perpetual calendar, but also chiming watch. Right, beautifully designed piece. That's gorgeous, kind of brick-laid 5-row matching bracelet in yellow gold. You have the moon phase at 12 o'clock, which integrates so well the branding with a very striking moon phase that goes well with the colors represented on the case and the crown as well. The diamond-shaped hands, I think, add an unexpected dynamism to the design. There's also a leap year indicator here lodged into the subdial at 3 o'clock. Very well balanced and, in my opinion, beautiful design. And I don't think you get a perpetual calendar and a chiming watch in this sort of configuration, much less in a Gerard Genta design for this sort of price point. Even at the auction, it sold for $38,100. So again, Gerard Genta's own perpetual calendars, which will be very reminiscent of this design, as well as the Cartier Pasha perpetual calendars from this period, represent an important value proposition, even in an era where people are actively seeking out Cartier watches, right? Even in an era where collecting Cartier watches has become actually something popular. So keep these watches in mind. I think they are going to become increasingly hotter. That was lot 104, which is a Cartier perpetual calendar with a moon phase indicator, leap year indicator, and chiming function. And this is where you activate the minute repeater. What a beautiful watch. And apparently recently serviced as well. So pretty cool. JB says tomorrow morning Messi could be hoisting the cup. Man, yeah, what's going to happen with that? That's an interesting proposition. I mean, again, France is rightly proud of having featured now in 4 out of the last 7 finals. As you know, in '98, they hosted the cup. They beat Brazil in the final and won it for the first time. In 2006, they were in the final, which was marred by that famous headbutting incident where Zidane took out Materazzi, and Italy ended up winning. In 2018, in Russia, they played Croatia in the final and won. And tomorrow they're playing in Qatar, Argentina in the final. So that's 4 out of 7, and they have already won it for 2 times. They might end up getting the 3rd star on their jersey, which is an honor that not many have. I do want to recognize Croatia's success, though. Very young country, but they have almost consistently. I don't know. I don't want to say it randomly, but I think, including the European Championships, probably they haven't missed out on any of the finals. And sometimes they crash out in the early stages, but between 98, which was their first appearance, and now in 2022, they have actually made it to the podium basically 3 times. That's incredible. I mean, they won the bronze medal in 1993. They played the 3rd place game and won it in 1993. They have played the final in 2018 and lost to France. And here they crashed out at the semifinals against Argentina. It wasn't meant to be, but they went ahead and beat Morocco and won the bronze medal again. I mean, it's a magnificent achievement for a country of 4 million. It's incredible. They really have to be commended for it. And not to forget Morocco again, only the 3rd country outside of South America and Europe to have featured in that Final Four, to have made it to the semifinal. That's already an incredible achievement. I wish they marked it with a medal as well, but the semifinal is already an incredible achievement. And JB, it was lovely to have you on, and I look forward to seeing your new watches on Monday. Yeah, I mean, what can be said about Messi what can I say about Messi that hasn't been already said? I think I will repeat something that I mentioned in passing yesterday. Messi doesn't need the World Cup. I know, especially for a certain generation of football fans, older generations of football fans, the World Cup remains the hallmark. It remains the most important competition, the all-important arena. But in the current age, I don't think you can present the World Cup as the only thing that matters when you want to gauge or judge the greatness of a football player. There's so many important competitions that have arguably eclipsed the World Cup. Especially the Champions League is what I have in mind. And when you tally up all the career accomplishments of Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo too, the consistency in which they have contributed to goals in their clubs is unmatched. The kind of success that both of them has achieved in the domestic leagues, unmatched. The number of Champions Leagues they have won in Barcelona, and in Cristiano Ronaldo's case in Manchester United and Real Madrid, very special. Ronaldo has won a major cup for his country in bringing home the European Championship in 2016. Fantastic. Messi has appeared, I think, in 4 consecutive, I don't know if it's consecutive, but he appeared in 4 Copa America finals and finally won one for his country. That's significant in and of itself. I don't care what most Europeans think. Copa America is still very important, if not as important than the European Championship. In a way, I find the CONMEBOL competition a little more balanced, right? I feel the teams are a little more evenly matched and somehow more competitive. But, that's open to an argument. It's still, I think, winning Copa America is just as important as winning the European Championship. And Messi, by the way, I mean, he doesn't get much credit for it, but I think in 2014, he really did carry that team on his shoulders to bring it to the final. And they choked in the final. I'm sorry. I mean, it wasn't really Messi's fault. He didn't really have his best game either. But there was one clear chance that Higuain missed. Had he scored that, we wouldn't be even having this conversation. But this is his second World Cup final. Not many people achieve that. I know France is now playing back-to-back, but that's if they win, that will only be the second time in history, right? After Brazil, which did it in 1952. So playing 2 World Cup finals, I think they have already achieved so much. Messi has already achieved so much. I think it's unfair to I think it's really unfair to expect so much from Messi and say, well, he can't even be included in the greatest of all time discussion until he wins the World Cup. I think Messi is already an all-time great. However you rank him, he is certainly the level of a player like Pele, like Maradona, like many others, like Zidane. Give me a break. He doesn't need the World Cup to achieve that. But I think he will win it tomorrow. I have a feeling that he will. My heart is with Argentina anyways. But I think Messi has already achieved greatness with the 2 World Cup finals, with the 4 Copa America finals, having won 1, with, I think, 10 or 11 domestic titles, and 4 Champions Leagues. I mean, that's a lot. That's a huge achievement already. Okay, let's go back to the world of watches for a little more before we close out in about 20 minutes or so. Again, if you have any last-minute questions, interventions, feel free to send them in, ideally with a super chat, of course. That would be much appreciated. If you're on your way out, feel free to click that like button. Give me an upvote if you have enjoyed the show, if you have learned or gained anything from it. I certainly appreciate all of you, and thank you for your presence and support. I want to give you a glimpse of what I provide for my most loyal supporters in Patreon, right? That's a service I offer at the entry level, at the initiate level, for $10 per month. This will be $10 until the end of the year, after which it will increase. I'll provide more services as well, but that 10 is going to be at least 15. But everyone who has already signed up, and everyone who will sign up between now and the end of the month, will be grandfathered in. So as long as you have signed up now and stay a member on Patreon for $10 per month, you will receive 3 links from me per day, up to 100 different links to watch deals online per month. And today I decided to focus on the Breguet Marine, especially the 5817 reference, which was in a way the sweet spot for many. It had a lot of the great things that set aside the Breguet Marine among luxury sports watches in this segment. And a lot of what makes Breguet was present in this watch, even if it was a sportier take on that ethos. I mean, for example, the watch has the traditional Breguet or Pomme hands, except they're filled with lume. This earlier version has a much more subtle take on the illumination of the rest of the dial, which is just dots that correspond to the hour markers. And you have the big date through these 2 guichet openings at 6 o'clock, which add a kind of sporty flair to the watch, and they are beautifully matched with rubber bands that reflect the color of the dial, which is blue in this particular example. Bracelets are also available. I do prefer these with the rubber, but the later generation of the bracelet is actually a pretty nice one. This example is in stainless steel, which makes it perhaps a more true blood sports watch than the white gold of the more recent reference. I know there's a titanium version as well, but I don't quite like the dial design of that. Here you have a beautiful vortex-like guilloche decoration that is hand-guided in its application, very beautiful, very vibrant, and the blue of the dial is quite nice as well, as you can see from this particular angle. The case itself is a little more angular than the average Breguet case, which reflects the sporty dynamism of the watch, but the case is still decorated on the band with fluting, as is part of the design codes of a modern Breguet wristwatch. And even though we don't have a picture here, the self-winding movement actually has a rotor that reflects this guilloche decoration of the dial, which I will be hopefully able to show in the next example. This is the blue dial version that has gone all the way down to $10,000 these days. And I expect them to drop a little more as well in the near future. The second example, before I go to that example, I've actually found shots of the rotor as well. So this is the movement of the reference 5817, which is the previous generation. And you can see here the déployant buckle 2, which has that wavy motif too, just so you know that this is a nautical watch if you missed the name Marine by any chance. You have a black dial version of it, which has a perhaps slightly more severe look, but I don't think it loses in sportiness because of that. I kind of like the contrast of the black with the steel of the case and kind of the ruthenium accents of the dial. This example actually comes with box and papers as well, so it's a little the pricing is a little higher for that reason. Another detail that I like about this is the fact that the rubber band sits flush to the case, which was the case with the Blue Dial 2, of course, but this is what I like about this rubber band design, and it's bolted through as well. So it gives the entire design a very coherent, integral, and integrated aesthetic. I like it in black as well, and I particularly like the fact that the dates windows match the black in the background too. And this is a piece that's priced right around 13,000, but again, I think these are coming down slowly but surely. So far they have basically crashed down, but I think at this point they will continue that downward trend for a little while longer. And this one is a relatively recent piece too, right? You know, right before this generation was discontinued, basically. The crown guards are designed in a way to give the look of a propeller to it, which again, if you ever missed that this was a nautical themed sports watch, just so you know, the propeller, the waves, get it? They have gone a little bit overboard on that, but we will indulge Breguet. And last one that I want to show is the most recent version, which comes in this very striking blue hand guilloche wave dial. People are of two minds about this watch. Some think that the way that it has Roman numerals that are excessively filled with the luminous material somehow makes the watch neither fish nor fowl in a way, right? Neither classically Breguet or sporty enough. The case design is a little different in this case and a little more unique to the model. More of the adapted or converted pocket watch to wristwatch look, which in a way also reflects the heritage of the brand, both in terms of the making of the pocket watches, but also as a maker of marine chronometers too. After all, Abraham Louis Breguet was the official chronometrist of the Royal Navy once upon a time. Otherwise, the design codes of Breguet are there with the fluted case band, as well as the Breguet hands that are once again filled here with luminous material, and even more luxurious déployant band that has, again, in case you have forgot, we are talking about nautical watch. You have ship's wheel as your buckle, and you also have half a ship's wheel as the rotor of this self-winding movement as well. And again, there are aspects of this watch that can appeal to some, aspects of the earlier model that can appeal to others. In time, I came to appreciate the older generation, which is 5817, a little more, but I think this is a very well balanced and original design that I like a lot, especially in white gold with this hand guilloché blue wave dial. It's one of those watches. I don't know if it's the trapezoid opening and the peculiar balance that it introduces to the dial, but this is one of the watches where I don't actually mind a date window. But they are very different, even though they're both Breguet Marines and they're both Breguet's luxurious sports watch. At the end of the day, if you want to go for stainless steel, and if you like that sort of integrated rubber bracelet, rubber band look that sits flush to the case, you go for the older generation, especially if you feel that there's just too much lume on this particular dial. If you like the more adventurous and original case design and the hand guilloché dial of this new generation, you go for the 5517. But in either case, I think these are great luxury sports watches that seem to be largely forgotten, and they trend well under retail. And as you see, again, the presentation box itself looks like the deck of Riva, you know, it's just, again, the nautical theme is a little overdone, but it's still endearing at a certain level. 5517 still trends a little too close to 20 for my liking, but as you see, this is priced right around 19,000, original box and papers, and the seller actually accepts offers. So it's you can probably get it for much cheaper. I think in this case, it's a seller from Japan. So dealing with customs and everything else might be a certain hassle, but there we go. This has been trending down as well. I think they'll probably come down all the way to 15, not in a not too distant future. So keep an eye out for Breguet Marine, whether you're looking for the new generation, which is reference number 5517 BB for the white gold blue dial, or if you're looking for the older generation, which is 5817 ST, and they have them actually in various different metals, in yellow gold, in pink gold, in blue dial, in white dial, in black dial. So the world is your oyster, and they trend for much less On rubber bands, they're a dime a dozen. On bracelet, they're a little harder to find, but in either case, they're really gorgeous watches, I think, that have been mostly overlooked. And this is the kind of service that I provide for my Patreon supporters. So I send them at least 3 links that have a thematic cohesion, that are curated around a certain theme, segment, category, or specific model, that present good deals at the time, but that can also inform them of the existence of these kinds of pieces that may have fallen under the radar, that may have slipped through the cracks, and that are not really getting a lot of attention. So it's a good service that I provide, both for identifying value propositions now, but also learning about different kinds of watches that you might otherwise not pay attention to, you might otherwise not come across, you might otherwise not think about on a daily basis. This is something, of course, I do in the channel on live streams, but in a much more extemporaneous manner. We had a chance through the Bonhams London auction that just concluded this last Wednesday to look at a number of vintage Hoya chronographs, both hand wound and self-winding. That was very informative and educational, I thought. I hope you gained something from it. I hope you learned something from it, and I hope you enjoyed it, in which case, again, please hit the like button. It really helps a lot for me. Subscribe if you haven't. I'm here with watch content every day. I think I will have an early show tomorrow as well. Pardon me, and perhaps I will double up again, both with a, early show and late show. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I'm here for 2 more minutes. So if you want to maybe squeeze in one more question or another request, feel free. But I'm looking forward to seeing the World Cup final tomorrow in the morning, and then we will have a chance to talk a little bit about it and maybe reflect on it, and also talk about watches at around 2 p.m. My time, Eastern Standard Time right now. And we'll go from there. How about that? So I'm saying goodbye. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you for being here again. I appreciate Nick Butter for the super chat and Eric L for the PayPal contribution. These things make all the difference in the world. You know that this channel is entirely at the behest of the audience, entirely beholden to the wishes and contributions of the audience. So everything you do for this channel, whether it is just upvoting the live streams, subscribing the channel, following me on Instagram, or contributing through PayPal, Cash App, supporting me on Patreon, I appreciate it all. In either case, whether you super chat or not, I'm thankful for your presence and support here. Please follow me on Instagram as well. This helps me grow both platforms exponentially. It really does help. So if you have an Instagram account, please give me a follow. I have watch content every day that has some overlap, but that is also a little different. on Instagram. So feel free, and you can always DM me there or write to me via email at lordhellespont5@gmail.com. That is lordhellesportv@gmail.com. If you want to contribute to the channel, if you want to support this channel, this platform, and help it remain independent, the information is in the crawling ticker. It is pinned there in the chat, and it is also included in the video description. Thank you for your presence and support. I'll see you tomorrow, and until then, I bid you adieu. Take care, everyone.